Hey guys, welcome to the Nate Whitson podcast. I'm your host and super grateful that you're here. My role here is a habits and behavioral change coach for Christian men in particular. And the goal here of Fight Club and the Nate Whitson show and ministry and all of that is that we can help Christian men, myself first in line because I need it so much myself. I want to help us to align our behaviors with what we believe. And when there's a disconnect between behavior and belief, it comes across as hypocrisy. And indeed, it truly is. And in fact, everybody listening to this, Christian or not, is a hypocrite to a certain degree. And we're trying to bridge that gap because the mission of Christ is worthy of such a thing. And we're trying to become the men who are living on mission, who are living the lives that God meant for us to live. And so few of us are. You know, Jesus said in John 10:10 that I come that they might have life to the fullest. And when I look at the history of my own story and I look at the lives of so many of us men out here, very few of us live that way, where you would say, man, I'm living life to the fullest. Well, is it because of we don't believe enough? Is it because of, circumstances that we can't control? What is it, right? Living a life of honor and discipline, strength and joy, the four pillars of this ministry, is supernatural, of course. And God makes it available to us through Christ, but so few of us are there. And my deep belief is that if we could better align what we do with what we say we believe, we will find momentum in our lives to become more of that man, and the world will be changed. Our world will be changed. Our families, our homes, our parenting, right? All of these things. So that's the mission. That's the goal. If that sparks of any kind of interest to you, thank you for listening. Do me a favor if that's the case and hit that subscribe button really quick right now while you're thinking about it. Maybe that notification button too, so that you know whenever new shows come out, which is every Monday, best I can anyways. Every Monday morning we'll have a new show out for you, specifically to Christian men who are trying to get in the fight and win. So share it with a friend. Maybe just share it if this message today happens to strike a nerve and it's like, man, that's really good. Maybe share it with somebody that you're friends with. Encourage them to go to getinthefight.club and check it out. There's lots of free things there for you to check out. So anyways, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and subscribing. It makes a difference. Today, I want to talk about this idea that for me is, man, I hope I can do it justice, because for me, this is a big battle in my own life. And I think it might be something that connects with you as well. And that is the battle between the now versus the later. It's this idea of how do we win against our impulses. And I don't know if you're an impulsive person or not, but many of us are, myself included. And all of us, to a certain degree, battle between the now and the later. And so I want to talk about that, and I hope to make the point to you that this is a critical issue for men who want to become the men that God meant for us to be. And I want to start with this story of the Marshmallow Test. I don't know if you've heard this story. I wish I could think of the guy. I didn't look it up. I should have looked up the guy's name that started this or did this initial Marshmallow Test. But I bet you've seen maybe even a iteration of it online possibly. But the Marshmallow Test was this idea where young kids were brought in to this test room and this lab, and in front of them sat a marshmallow. Okay, if you can picture this young guy, picture yourself maybe as this young kid who's brought into this room. The adult brings you in. Parents are standing outside the door as well. And they're just like, hey, what I want you to do is there's a marshmallow in front of you. Just don't eat it, right? And if you'll wait and not touch this in terms of eating it, don't eat it. If you don't eat this marshmallow, then later I'm going to bring you two marshmallows. Right? Now, again, for an adult, that may not be a big deal, but for a kid, can you imagine? There's nobody in the room. It's just you and a table and this treat right in front of you, this marshmallow, this irresistible marshmallow that's right in front of you. And if you can imagine the scene here, it is a hilarious idea. And if you've seen some of the videos of these tests, it is truly hilarious. Some of these kids come in, and I'm always trying to picture, by the way, what goofy young Nate would do here, but I can kind of imagine what I might do actually. But this marshmallow sits in front of these kids, and some of the kids they smell it. They're all over it, but they're not eating it. They know they can't eat it, but man, they're getting as close as possible to it. Some are touching it, squeezing it. Some are just staring at it. Some kind of completely ignore it, right? There's this huge range of how the kids respond to the marshmallow test. Some give in instantly. and they're just like, I can't resist. It's right there. They look back at the door, like, okay, nobody's looking. Let's see how it goes, right? And they eat it instantly. Some, it just, the time drags on, and the longer they have to wait, the more they can't resist, and they eventually give in. It's this huge range, right? But what was fascinating to me about the marshmallow test, several things, of course, but one of the things I thought was super fascinating was that the researchers tracked these young kids and somehow stayed with the study long enough to kind of see, like, how did their lives turn out? Did this marshmallow test predict anything in their lives? And indeed it did. The test showed that when kids were given the choice between eating the one marshmallow now or delaying it and waiting to get two, that the ones that could wait, the ones that could think about later and the benefits of later, the ones that could win against their impulses, actually did better later in almost every category of life as adults. They did better in things like school. They did better with their health. They did better at work. They marked that they were happier and more satisfied in life. It was really kind of like a remarkable study to see that it isn't about a marshmallow. It's about your ability to have self-control and being able then to delay short-term pleasure for something that was better later proved to be a big factor in a person's success and happiness and joy. Now, think about how important that is to this conversation we're having today. The takeaway here is kind of simple in a lot of ways. People who learn to pause, to wait, and to choose wisely enough to delay gratification in the moment experience greater rewards and better outcomes than those who give in to their immediate urges and impulses. So it struck me here, and I've studied this in different areas of counseling and just studying human behavior and influence and different things. But one of the interesting things that I've learned over time is that we tend to think that we have one brain, and in reality, we have competing brains inside of our head. On one side of the equation is this part of your brain that you might call, some researchers and scientists call the hot system. And this hot system is those impulses. It's the part of the brain that says, like, you need to get that now. You need to get that now. Like, this thing, you shouldn't resist what's right in front of you. You should go grab it and eat that marshmallow while you have a chance. On the other side of the brain, and maybe not like physically, but this competing brain is maybe what you would call the cool system. It's this part of the brain that has to do with reasoning and logic, and it's the slowing down brain that thinks through it more critically. So in competition then is this hot system and this cool system, this impulsive part of your brain and this logical, reasonable side of your brain. And think about your own story for a minute. Which one of those is more powerful than you? And how often are you maybe controlled by your impulses and give in to the temptations that are right there in the moment, even though you know logically and reasonably that it's the wrong move? I'm like raising my hand because that's been me in many different areas of my life. I don't know how I would have done as a young kid in that scenario, because I was also kind of a rule follower. I didn't want to break the rules. I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to let my parents down. But there's certainly a side of me that might look around the room and be like, there ain't nobody looking. Maybe this won't be so bad, right? There's a temptation, I think, that we all face. It's this daily battle. And maybe it's not with marshmallows for you. It's not marshmallows for me, but it's lust. It's anger. Maybe for you, it's money. Maybe for you, it's food. Maybe for you, it's scrolling through your phone, right? But there are decisions that we have to make every single day. And whether we're consciously aware of it or not, and now hopefully you are as you're hearing this conversation, that there is a battle in your mind between this hot system, this impulsive side of you, and this side of you that's reasonable and logical. Like, man, why would I do that? Why would I give into that? Why would I say yes to that when what is later could be so much better, right? And so the question then that is natural, I think, here, that I want to wrestle with today, that I'm wrestling with in my own story here and journey, is what do we do about our impulses? How do we control them? And how do we keep from being controlled by them? Because here's the problem that I face, that I think you might face too. Instant gratification promises you upfront relief. Instant gratification promises relief in the moment. It's like the now part of life. Instant gratification says now is all that matters, and now you will benefit if you do this thing. But instant gratification always costs you more later. Instant gratification, just for clarity, promises relief now, but it always costs you more later. Think about some of these areas here in your own life or people that you know. When it comes to sexual temptation or lust, clicking on pornography in the now or going, I'm just going to watch it just this once. In the moment, in the now, is satisfying. And you can't say that it's not. In fact, part of what we take on here in this ministry is helping men navigate through that. I'm a sexual addiction recovery coach, and I help men deal with this very specific issue and have dealt with this issue, deal with this issue, have to fight this issue in my own life. But there's a real side of this that like that impulsive side of you says, man, if I click on this and watch this, this is going to be great. And in the moment, in the very, very short, immediate moment, it actually is. The dopamine spike in your brain is higher than cocaine or methamphetamines. Think about that. But with every scroll and click of the button, when you go from one video to the next, it keeps the high. When you take drugs, you get the high, which is not quite as high in the brain as porn, but that high drops pretty quickly, and it drops pretty severely. Whereas porn is even maybe more addictive because you can move from image to image, screen to screen, and it stays there. And my point to you is this. Clicking on that, giving into that, in the moment will feel good now, but later, right? It cost you more than you thought. Later, it creates shame. It creates secrecy. It creates distance from your wife. It creates actual physiologically worse, actual real life sex because your brain isn't as intrigued or excited by what's real. How about this? Maybe it's not porn for you, but maybe it's just flirting with another woman. Temporarily, the ego boost of flirting and having a girl respond back to you feels good, doesn't it? It feels good if she kind of smiles or laughs or thinks that you're great or whatever it is. But later, right? Later it cracks trust. Later, it breaks down integrity in your life. Later, it keeps you from being a man of honor, and it leads to trouble that you never would have expected. Moving on from that, how about anger? I talk to a lot of men that deal with anger or just out of control emotions. In the moment when you're freaking out and your hot side of your brain is freaking out because your kids did something that ticked you off or your wife says something demeaning or whatever it is, right? Expectations aren't met in life, at work. You snap at the person in front of you, and in the moment, it feels good right now, right? Relief comes in for venting, and right now you're like, good, that person deserved it, right? How long does that stay? Not long, because later it leads to hurt. Later it leads to regret. Later it leads to like, dude, what's wrong with me? How about like sending a harsh text or an email in anger? Have you ever done that? Have you ever responded to social media where somebody says something and you're like, whatever, you respond back like an idiot. You know in the moment you shouldn't, but it feels kind of good to go like, that person deserves it. I'm glad I put them in their place. You feel powerful in the now, but later you have a broken relationship. Later you lose respect. I'm a financial advisor, and so I'm talking about money at work all the time. And money is one of these things where like having no control in the moment means that impulsively you're on Amazon and you're like, want it, buy it. Do I have the money for it? No, I can't really afford it. I'm not saving for the future. I'm not, I don't have an emergency fund, but I need that new whatever it is, right? A gadget, a tool, a toy, whatever it is. There's a dopamine hit when you buy something, and it's a short-term thrill now, but later it leads to debt, it leads to financial stress, it leads to problems in the home. How about gambling? Sports betting, risky trades that you're making. There's a rush and excitement. And if you don't think it's true or you think you're above it, you're crazy. The casinos know, right? Now you can bring the casino right on your phone, I guess, and you can gamble every sports pitch. You can gamble every game, every whatever you want, right? Sports betting, gambling, risky trades. There's a rush of excitement now when it comes to spending money, gambling, whatever it is. But later, no savings, loss of security, loss of peace, all of these kinds of things. How about food? Late night snacking. When you think about food, this is a big issue for a lot of guys. Late night snacking, overeating during a long day at work or whatever it is, not being prepared. So you go out and you buy lunch every single day, or you're drinking sodas or whatever it is, right? Comfort now, but later you feel guilty. Later you feel sluggish. Later you have health issues. Later you pay a consequence for not having discipline with food, with not being able to have self-control. How about when you skip a workout because you decide, you know what, I'm too tired. You hit the snooze button, you stay on the couch, you skip it for whatever excuse that you make, right? And in the moment now you're like, man, that's good, right? Like I didn't really want to do that. But later, right? Guilt, you feel like a weak man, you feel like you have lower confidence, you start to wonder, what's wrong with me? Do I have what it takes? Why can't I, beat this thing? Why can't I deal with this issue and just go do hard things, right? Later, it's always worse. Now it's really great. Later, it's always worse. At work, maybe you're scrolling through your phone instead of doing the hard things that you're supposed to be working on, right? It's a quick escape in the moment, in the now, but later it's missed opportunities. Later it's stress, always looking over your shoulder, wondering, is the boss going to know? Is my performance going to slip? All of that, right? Hitting snooze. We've talked about that. It feels good, right? In the moment. But when you feel like less than a man later, it just leads to regret. And then maybe even just lastly, like thinking about your spiritual life, like skipping prayer or skipping reading your scripture so that you can scroll on your phone or so that you can watch Netflix or whatever it is, whatever good excuse in your brain it is to not do the spiritual things that you need to do to be the best that you can be. In the now feels easier and it feels better, but later it leaves your soul weak and wimpy, and later is always emptier, right? When you realize that instant gratification in the moment feels good now, but it leads to consequences that are much greater later, you realize what the fight's really about. You realize how much this whole thing of life is mental, right? It's a mental battle. And this is where the Bible tells us we need to train. We need to train through that, train through having conversations like this. And then I'm going to give you some ideas here in just a second for how to actually practically deal with this issue. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break from the show to share with you 3 things that I think could help you to become more of the man that God meant for you to be: a better husband, a better father, and a better follower of Jesus Christ. 3 things, totally free, that I think can help you. Number 1 is our podcast. Hit the subscribe button, share them with a friend. That makes a big difference, not only in your life, but in somebody else that you care about as well. And it helps us to reach more men. Number 2, we do a free weekly newsletter that is short, it's concise, it deals with just one key question and then 3 simple action items each week that will help you to get in the fight in a really practical way. You can find that at getinthefight.club/newsletter. And then lastly, you can join our Fight Club community. This is a free private app for Christian men only, where you can talk to guys and get involved with guys' lives from all around the world who are just like you, trying to get in the fight to be better men for Christ. You get things like daily devos, weekly challenges, monthly gatherings, small groups, so much more. It's kind of like a Facebook group, but exclusively for Christian men, and it's totally awesome, and it's totally free. getinthefight.club/join and check it out. Get more today. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, get our newsletter, get involved in our Fight Club. Totally free things to help you to get in the fight and win today. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. If we don't learn to address that hot side of our brain that says, do it now, do it now, do it now, do it, right? Or don't do it, whatever it is, it's the same impulsive brain. And the impulses will run the show if you don't control them, if you don't get them under control, if you don't learn to have self-control, spirit-led control. And the result is that you never fully feel like you're living life to the fullest, like we talked about. You never really feel like you're becoming the man that God meant for you to be. And that feeling, that nagging feeling in you, is what so many of us are experiencing today. And it's what this ministry is all about. Bridging that gap between what we know to be true, what we believe to be true about the later being better, and fighting this inner man, this side of my brain that's so impulsive and weak and wimpy because I choose what's comfortable now, right? We're fighting against that. So here's some things, practically speaking, that I want you to know. Self-control is a muscle that you can train and get stronger. Many of us think like, I'm just this way. And you've bought into that lie because you've probably told it to yourself for so long. I'm just not very good at fill in the blank. I'm not a morning person. I'm not an exercise guy. I'm not healthy like you, or whatever it is, right? Like we fill in the blanks for why we don't have self-control. But I'm telling you today, it's a muscle that can be trained. It's a muscle that can be strengthened, right? Your brain has this hot system that pushes towards the now. But this is what scriptures talk about when it says in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, above everything else, guard your heart, for out of it, out of your heart, flows everything in your life. This is like a verse that you should probably have deeply embedded into your mind. Above everything else that you do today and every day, guard your heart. What does that mean? Well, the heart is that impulsive side of you, that those urges, those emotions, guard those things. Guard the impulse to want to go do the dumb thing right in front of you, to eat the marshmallow, knowing that later will be so much better. Guard that impulse to say, like, you know what, I don't really feel like exercising today. I'm kind of sore, I'm kind of tired, I'm kind of whatever, right? No, go do that thing, because later you will be so glad that you did, and you know it. You already know it. But you have to guard your heart, because everything in your life flows out of that battle between the hot and the cool system. It makes me think of this verse here from James chapter 1, verse 13 through 15. I'll read it for you here. It says, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, number one, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted, listen closely, when they're dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it's full grown, gives birth to death. Here's what's happening. That impulsive side, that do it now side, right? That hot side in your brain is when you get dragged away by that thing. I get dragged away from doing the hard right thing, and I do the easy wrong thing. Instead of getting out of bed and getting into God's word, I go, you know what? I'm just going to hit the snooze just one more time. Right? That is being dragged away by an evil desire and enticed. That's really what it's saying here. Now, don't get caught up in the word evil, because I think that's going to throw you off. Understand the point here. You know you should get out of bed. You know you should read the Bible. You know you should exercise. You know you should ask for forgiveness. You know what you should do. We all do, really, right? We know it. But you're being dragged away by this other thing. It's enticing you. This is what James is saying. It's a desire. Proverbs 4:23, guard those things. Guard those desires carefully, because everything in your life flows out of that desire. Well, I want to be a man that God is proud of. I want to be a man that knows he can do hard right things. But you're going to be enticed to not do the behaviors and the things, the real life things that will lead you to be that. This is the bridging in this ministry that I'm talking about, of actually behavior doesn't save you. Behavior is the thing that strengthens the resolve to be the man that God made you to be. And we fight this constantly. Your brain has this cool system that God has given you. And I don't mean cool as in neat. I mean hot and cold. There's this cool system, this cooling system that helps you to think long term, right? It's this logical side, this reasonable side. And your goal is to remember every single day, to be alert to the idea that this hot and cool system is competing against one another. You don't have one brain. You have two competing brains. Some of you are wondering if you have one brain at all. I understand that. But the point is, you really have two competing brains in your head. And they are fighting and waging war, right? The Bible's super clear about this. The battle is in the mind. And when we can understand how the battle works, and we can understand what the temptations are, and we're like, oh, wait, I know what's happening here. I'm being enticed to give in to the pleasures of now, and I will sacrifice the better later. And so I'm not going to do that. Why? Because I'm a man of strength. I'm a man of discipline. I'm a man of honor, and I'm a man of joy. I'm alert to the schemes of the devil. I'm going to stand firm in what I know to be true in my faith, that God's later is always better than the devil's temptation for now. You know what I'm saying? It's like we work our way through these things in Fight Club every day. It's why you should join and be a part of this community. We pray through that very thing every single day, that we would act like men, that we'd be strong, that we would do everything in love. And it's all part of this journey of bridging the gap between what we know to do with behavior and what we say we believe. But there's this tension, there's this enticement that happens every day between these two sides of your brain, right? Think about this verse I love from Genesis 4, verse 7. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Sin is right there. This is what James is talking about too, this evil desire. It's right there. And it's inside your head. It's right. It's this battle inside your head. And you've got to recognize this battle for what it is. That's why I love this conversation today. It could be literally life-changing for you if you start to be alert to this battle. If you start to go, you know what? Sin is crouching like a tiger, getting ready to pounce on its prey. The prey doesn't even know it's there. Most of us as men, we don't even know. We're not alert at all to the dangers of the enemy. We don't even know how our brain works. We're so out of tune when it comes to like our emotional life and what's happening in our heart, what's happening in our brain. Pausing though is really what we need. Like how do you do this? How do you win this? How do you rule over this? Pausing creates this space for the cool part of your brain to take control. That part of your brain that is reasonable and right. It's how you defeat the hot system, is by defeating it through this cool system of recognizing that God's way is a better way, right? 3 things for you practically. How are you going to win against impulsive living? Number 1, pause before you act. Pause before you act. That's the first thing. This is where 1 Timothy 4:7 says you must train yourselves to be godly. It is going to take some training for you to implement this. I call this in my own system the if-then pause plan. If this happens, then I'm going to respond like this. I know it going into the game how I'm going to respond. So for example, if I know that I deal with lust and lust is crouching at the door, if that shows up, then I'm going to respond like this. And the biggest thing, the easiest thing I can start with, and there's lots of things we can get into, but the thing for today I want you to do is simply pause. If the temptation, whatever it is for you, money, impulsive spending, spiritual weakness, if it's something at work, if it's whatever it is, right? All those things we talked about, sexual sin, anger, emotions. When they show up, if they show up, and they're going to, if they show up, then I'm going to respond by pausing and waiting for at least 10 seconds. Before I respond, before I act, before I do or don't do the next step, I'm simply going to pause. There is so much power in the pause. If you could, think about your own journey, think about your own story. Imagine if some of those huge regrets that you have in your life, had you had the ability and the strength to be able to simply pause before you did that dumb thing. Imagine how different your life might be had you never said those words out loud that hurt your wife's heart forever. Had you paused and thought through, man, the consequences if I keep flirting with this girl. If I had just paused and thought about how much better I would feel if I just get my butt out of bed and go do the exercise that I know I want to do anyways, right? What is your thing? The if-then pause plan allows you to say, look, I know this is going to happen, and when it does, here's how I'm going to respond. If this temptation shows, then I'm going to pause 10 seconds. That's step 1. The second thing that you can do to beat impulsive living, I think, is to simply cool the heat. Cool that heated system that's out of control, that anger that's flaring up, that lust that's beating on the door, whatever it is, right? I want you to pause, and I want you to breathe. Many guys think breathing is this, I don't know, silly thing, this mystical thing. I don't know. Breathing is the most basic thing, right? And think about this. When God makes a human alive, what does he do? He breathes his breath into them. It has been thought that like every breath says the name of God, right? Like every breath is a gift from him. And quite literally, physiologically, spiritually, everything else, if you would pause and then just concentrate on breathing, it slows the heated system, right? This is a little bit of brain science, but it's true. When you simply breathe, if you could pause 10 seconds, step one, and then breathe, step two, your physiological response system goes from hot to cool fairly quickly. You can really go from spinning your thoughts out of control to simply taking a deep breath, holding it in, and then take one more and take one full in, right? So it's like a breath, fill up your lungs, and then take one more slight breath in, hold it, and then let it out super slow. Even if you just did that twice, that breathing technique twice. It's the way for your hot part of your brain, the hot system, the impulsive system that says like, do it now or don't do that, right? Stay in bed, whatever that impulse is. It fights against it if you would just pause and then breathe. Last thing I just said is number 3 is just to remember. The reward you already know is going to be greater than the now, right? You already know that the consequence is heavier, but the reward is even greater. It's again like, do you not know that if you are supposed to go exercise, that staying in bed is going to make you feel worse? You know that, right? Like I don't have to convince you of that, but I need you to remember that. I need you to remember that the reward is always greater, right? Pause, give it 10 seconds, breathe, physically just breathe and let it slow things down. And as you do that, remember that God's way is a better way. Remember that you actually want to do that thing and then just move, act on it, do the thing. Like God did not design us to be mastered by our impulses. And he warns us through his word that sin is crouching and it desires to have you, but you must rule over it, right? Instant gratification promises you that now is better than later. But we know that the devil's a liar. We know his tactics. We know his schemes. And so we remember today to pause, give it a minute, breathe, and then remember. Every time you do that and you win, you are strengthening that muscle of self-control. How cool is that? Every time you'll pause, breathe, and remember, you get stronger at being a man of self-control. And when you do, you become more of the man that God meant for you to be. And that's really what this is all about. All right, that's it for today, fellas. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being here. And again, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't. If this is helpful, maybe share it with your social media contacts and friends. Maybe just send it to one guy directly. It doesn't matter. But every time you do that, it helps us to reach more men for Christ. And we want to help each man, each Christian man, to be a man of honor and discipline, strength and joy. That's really what this fight's all about. So get in the fight, stay in it, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here today and listening to the show. Please be sure to head over to the website at getinthefight.club. And before you go, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click the like button, and leave us a positive 5-star review. It makes a huge difference whenever you do. Have a great day. Go get in the fight.